The marketing for my law firm has always been authentic. I've never sold out in marketing. I've never just done what's easy and what everybody else is doing. I've always seen our firm and the way we handle cases to be, this is the way we do things. If you want things done the way you see on TV and the stereotypical injury law firm, then go hire those guys.
Hey everyone, Bo Royal here, co-founder and CEO of Pareto Legal, a marketing agency that helps injury lawyers increase their profits with digital strategy, online advertising, and analytics. You're listening to the Pareto Legal Podcast, where we feature world-class attorneys, entrepreneurs, and legal experts. And today I am joined by James Amaro, founder of Amaro Law Firm, a Texas-based personal injury law firm that focuses on injury and wrongful death cases. In this episode, we'll learn more about James's background and how he was able to go from a solo practitioner to a 13-attorney practice with 6 locations across Texas. James, thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Bo. Appreciate it.
So, James, can we start by talking about your journey in founding Amaro Law Firm and what specifically inspired you to move from defense law to personal injury law?
Sure. It's kind of a long story, but I'm going to try to make it brief for everybody, because and also kind of share some experiences for some of those that might be on the defense that are thinking about making the leap to the plaintiff's bar. I've always been like entrepreneurial. I never really had a 9-to-5 job. I had got my real estate license when I was 20 years old as an undergrad student. Started a web development company in Austin while I was an undergrad. That was pretty successful pretty quick. Decided to go to law school, went to law school, and for 3 years I'm looking at the opportunity cost because I was making a lot of money when I was an undergrad. I was making up to like $8,000 to $10,000 a month, while going to school full time. And in the 90s, that was a lot of money, to walk away from. And I did, and I had friends that were making well over 6 figures, in 1998. That were doing exactly what I was doing in real estate. And, so I walked away from it, sold out my interest in the internet company that we had started and went to law school, was day trading, in between classes, with the money I had, and then ended up losing everything during the .com bust in 2000. And then I was back to square one going to law school and said, well, this is going to have to work out. So I get out of law school, and the job that I was looking at getting, and I had done my final interview at, was the SEC New York. And, it was building number 7. And my last interview that I did, and I thought I had it in the bag. I'll never know what actually happened, but was August 30th, 2001, New York. And then I went to a study abroad program in Europe. Well, as we all know, what happened on 9/11, 2001 was the building 7 and the towers went down. And I'm sitting over there in Europe having the time of my life going, oh, well, there goes that. Back to square one again, because I kind of really crapped the bed on all of my interviews with the big law firms that I was interviewing with, and some of the biggest in the country too. And I really didn't do good in those interviews because I didn't want the job. I didn't want to sit in a basement reviewing documents for $150,000 a year. I wasn't wired to do that. And I knew I'd be miserable, but I knew I had a lot of student debt too. So I came back to Houston and applied to every law firm I could find. I just was getting rejection letters, for 8 months. I still have a binder of it, a 6-inch binder in my office with all the rejection letters I got. I just kept them. I was like, one day you're going to appreciate this, and I still do. And I show it to people all the time, and they come in my office and they're frustrated or whatever. And it's just like, look at this. You want to see frustration? I go, this is past frustration. This is depression, and this is probably sick that I actually kept all of these. And I was so, just beside myself that I actually alphabetized all these rejection letters. That's how much time I had on my hands, in those 8 months after I got out of law school looking for a job. And I committed myself to take the first job I got. I was like, whatever the first job you get, you're taking it, dude. And you're just going to go down this path. And that first job was doing insurance defense work. And I got to say, I learned a lot there, and I appreciate what I learned because I learned how the racket works with insurance on the other side. And I was handling trucking and wrongful death cases, personal injury cases, insurance claims, and general business litigation, asbestos, silicosis, that kind of stuff. But I was miserable. I hated it. I felt like I was tied down. I got the opportunity from some friends that were involved in a catastrophic explosion event that happened in Texas City at a big refinery in 2005. And a friend of a friend needed help. And I saw it coming and gave my boss pretty much immediate notice that I was going out on my own and I was going to start representing plaintiffs and, set them up so that nobody had any deadlines they had to worry about, on the dockets, because I kind of self-managed my dockets even at a young age. I mean, I had like 30 cases I was assigned and made sure we didn't have any deadlines for 90 days coming up, and then went out on my own and signed my first case that night in a Jack in the Box parking lot about 9:00 that night. And it settled for a year later for about $1.4 million.
And that was back in 2005, correct?
2005. It was May 5th, 2005. 5505.
Over 19 years ago. So a lot's happened, of course, over the last 19 years with you and your practice. What were some of the major decisions that you made or changes that occurred over the last 19 years that got you to where you are, right? You starting off, you were just a solo practitioner. Now you are a 13 attorney practice. What were some of the major events that happened or decisions you made or changes that occurred that led you to that?
I mean, there's a lot that's happened in 19 years. I didn't have a plan when I started the firm. I just knew I was miserable being a defense attorney. That's what I knew. And I knew I couldn't do it another day. I mean, I was willing to even go back to real estate or go move back to Austin and get back into the tech biz and just do something else because I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't represent insurance companies. There wasn't a win for me in it. Like I even if I was successful in getting the case dismissed on summary judgment, I didn't feel good about it. I was like, wow, pat yourself on the back. You won the case, but really what did you win? You save the insurance company some money and some poor plaintiff, it got poured out. Great. Since I started the firm, going out on your own and being in an insurance defense firm or even in a big law firm, I mean, you're going to get looks. People are going to call you ambulance chaser and all this stuff and, going to family functions. And what I learned is the more plaintiff work I did is the more offended I got when somebody called me an ambulance chaser because of how hard I was working and how much devastation I saw happening to people and their families and how close. And I've always been very fortunate. I've always worked on big cases, so I was always able to say, I was like, well, I don't just do car wreck cases. I do those kind of like as a favor. But then I handled this one car wreck case, and this was like a monumental shift in my thinking. And I got this young woman, 6 figures back in probably 2006 on this case I was handling for her. And it was a referral from a buddy of mine, his ex-girlfriend. And she had a compound fracture in her thoracic area of her spine. I remember a compression fracture is actually what it was called. And basically they hit a speed bump really hard after going to the bars. And she flew up in the back of a Yukon and hit her head on the roof because some jackass, decided he'd be funny and, hit the speed bumps going really fast and scare the girls in the car. And, I got this incredible result for her. I thought to myself as I was taking her back to the airport, she came to Houston for something, and I drove her back to the airport. So I was just operating out of a extra room in my townhouse at the time. I was like, man, you're actually pretty good at these things, and maybe it's not such a bad thing that you handle car wreck cases. Maybe, you think you're too good to handle these cases and only should do big cases. And so I opened up the door and I said, all right, let's do them. And I started doing them, and I started going to trial all the time. And so it wasn't going to trial like they say, settle your bad cases and try your good cases. I did the opposite. I was trying my awful cases, my impossible cases, and I was settling my good ones. It worked and ended up working out, because what happened was I had this mindset that there's no way anybody, if I could win this case, I can win any case, in these very, very hard cases, like our client rear ends somebody else, type of cases. And it's an abrupt stop, plaintiff case. Like, how are you going to win that, dude? You're on a freaking motorcycle speeding, rear end another car, and you're suing, So I had cases like that, or guys that were high on marijuana that, got clipped by a car and something happened, I mean, it was just really, really bad cases. Like, I could look at them now in hindsight and say, how did I even win these cases? Sitting here today, but I did. And I was winning them against very, very experienced attorneys who had tried like 300 cases. Like, this is all they did, every day, every week, they're trying a car wreck case. And for them, these were slam dunks on the defense. And I was still winning them, and I was getting great verdicts, 3 to, I think, 15x times medical bills. So that, I would say that was like a big, first deciding I was going to do car wreck cases and slip and falls and that stuff, not just explosions and 18-wheeler wrecks and wrongful death, but then also deciding I was going to actually try them. Like, those were two big things that happened early in my career. I was still around 30 to 32 years old, so I had a lot of success early in my career. And I just kept going, I never stopped. I tried a Hurricane Ike case. It was the first one that from Hurricane Ike that happened in 2008. And I took that one to verdict. It was the first case related from, it was the first case from damages from Hurricane Ike that went to a trial. And we did it in Jefferson County. We knocked it out the park against a very experienced trial lawyer who felt like I was trying a case against a damn law professor at the time, because he's new to law inside and out and knew evidence inside and out. And we won and got a great result for our client. And next thing you know, I got 1,000 Hurricane Ike cases, and now we're burning through those, for the next 2 years. And then, I had this mindset in the beginning to always say yes. And it's probably not good advice, it's probably not good advice in hindsight. Like,
starting out it is. Right.
Yeah, I would say that, but I would add this caveat. And there's something I heard from Keith Cunningham, who's an author, and he has this book, The Road Less Stupid or something like that. And he says, what is the upside? What is the downside? And can I live with the downside? My analysis early in my career in always saying yes was just always say yes, right? What's the upside? What's the downside? But then the third question, the most important one, is can you live with the downside? And there's some decisions I made in those first 5 to 10 years that I would definitely say, no, I cannot live with the downside. The downside will annihilate me. It could end in bankruptcy. But I did those things anyway, and I risked a lot. I risked everything. I was always all the chips on the table. And I was always all in those first probably 10 years of my practice, or close to 10, not 10 years of my practice, but yeah, I guess 10 years since I started the law firm. About 2005 to 2014 was pretty much all in all the time.
What are some of the most significant changes you've seen in the legal industry since you started your own firm, and particularly in personal injury law?
The most significant changes I've seen since I've started the firm have been just step-by-step dismantling of the recoveries, or the ability to make a recovery for plaintiffs, otherwise known as tort reform. I call it tort deform because it's just been awful what's happened. And it's been systematic also. It's just really, frankly, it's just disgusting, like what's been done behind the scenes to take away the rights of Texans to have their day in court, and a fair day in court. Specifically, what I've seen is like an attack at, what's a reasonable and necessary medical bill or charge for the services rendered. And, there's been this attack on that by activist judges, in Texas that render these opinions that basically make it very difficult for a plaintiff to succeed in recovering their past medical bills, because they always have these different ways and, technicalities in how you present the evidence and deadlines and all this other stuff, all these traps. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing in Texas and injury law, especially with like motor vehicle accidents, I mean, you're doing family law, criminal law. I mean, there's so many malpractice traps now. If I were to go back in time and start my firm today the way I did in 2005, I mean, I would have committed malpractice, 9 ways to Sunday in a year because of all these technical rules that now exist. I mean, in my cases, we don't even ask for past medical bills at this point. I mean, it's just, it provides nothing but opportunities for the defense to win the case, because they make the case about the medical bills. And so, one of our strategies in how we handle cases is, we have rules in a playbook, and one of them is take away the play. And so if your entire defense is based on the medical bills and the doctors, and did the plaintiff's lawyer refer you to these doctors, and is there a letter of protection, we just take all that away. We don't even ask for past medical bills in our cases. We focus on the human damages. We get to know our clients. We spend time with them, and we present, what happened to your life as a result of this incident. How inconvenient was it? How frustrating was it when you weren't getting better and you had to keep going to the doctor? You had to take time off. You had to use PTO. What did that do to your professional life? What did that do to your personal life? I refocus on that, because everybody can connect to that. Everybody can relate to that. It's a pain in the ass when you get hurt. And especially so when it wasn't as a result of your own doing. It was somebody else thrust this into your life. Somebody else caused this because they weren't paying attention. They weren't doing the right thing. They took shortcuts, cut corners, and now you get screwed. And now you have to go through all this crap because of somebody else, right? I mean, even as a minor thing, like, if it's like let's just say that it's so-called soft tissue injuries, that's what they say, soft tissue injuries, when nothing's broken. Even getting your car fixed, yeah, okay, they paid for your car, and they paid for your damages. They made you whole, but I've been out of a car for a while. I'm having to use this rental. I got to go take it over there. I got to go pick it up. I got to wait in line. I got to deal with all that crap that comes with renting a car. It's really inconvenient. And, and in my business and in most lawyers' business, time's money, I was at a doctor visit yesterday, and they were like talking to me about like, well, do you want to come back to do this at another time? You could save $300. I was like, no, let's just do it right now. Like, it'll actually cost me more money to come back than saving $300. I go, let's just do it right now. Let's knock it out. It's going to cost me more money. I'd rather just pay more money now to get it done.
How do you approach marketing for your law firm, and what strategies have proven most effective in attracting new clients?
The marketing for my law firm has always been authentic. Like, I've never sold out in marketing. And what I mean is, I've never just done what's easy and what everybody else is doing. I've resisted that from the very get-go. I've always seen our firm and the way we handle cases to be, this is the way we do things. If you want things done the way you see on TV and the stereotypical injury law firm, then go hire those guys. We're not the wreck and a check guys. That's not who you're hiring. So we've always been very authentic in what we do. I mean, I'm very passionate and very committed. Once I get my mind set on something, it's hard for me to change my mind. I'm open-minded, but once my mind is set, I don't stop. And I would tell clients when they first meet with me in the very beginning, I even have like a little doll in my office, if you will. It's the Energizer Bunny. And I would wind it up and say, this is me. Once you wind me up and tell me everything about your case and I understand it, I go. You don't need to check in on me. You don't need to call here. We will call you if we need anything, but I will be working, trust me, on your case. And I will not stop until it's done. And, two of the things that we tell our clients that they can expect from us is they will get closure. We will find out what happened and how this could have prevented and what we could do to prevent this happening to other people. And they're going to get justice. Those are the two things that they know for sure they can get from us. And so we've always been authentic in the marketing, and we've always put that out there. I've always avoided doing the cheesy stuff. I mean, it's easy to go out there and be the loudest, most aggressive lawyer and do that whole clown show, if you will. I mean, honestly.
Do you think that approach can sometimes attract a poor quality client?
I think it does. Like, I have no interest in representing a mass amount of people that are looking for like a rec and a check.
Right.
I have zero interest in doing that. The quality of clients that we get a lot of really good cases. And our marketing and what we put out there is very intentional. It's we put a lot of thought into everything that we do. I mean, I'm talking about sizes of letters, colors of letters. I was looking at a creative just a couple of weeks ago, and it had a little gleam on one of the letters. And I said, take that off. That's not even that. The shades of the red that we use, and the shadows. I mean, there's so much that goes into every little piece that we put out there into the public. We're very protective and very intentional about what we put out there. I mean, even a social media post, I only post about 3 things on social media. I post about family, work, and my hobby and passion, which is restoring old barn finds. Like I like old cars, and I like to work on them and fix them and bring them back to life. I don't make money on it. I actually lose money, but that's my passion. Other people like to go out to bars and happy hour or go to ball games and stuff. I like to fix cars, and yeah, I probably lose money on it and get in over my head on some projects, but that's my thing. And I like to share it and say, look at this thing. This is what it used to look like before, and now look what I did to it. It's cool. And that's all I do on social media. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about religion or social issues. We avoid all that. And that's because I'm a trial lawyer too. Like, I'm in the courtroom, and I learned very early in 2008 to 2010 that jurors are actually looking at your Facebook, and they're checking you out. And they're checking out your partners and whoever you work with. And so when we hire people, that's one of the things that we communicate to them is like, hey, you're now on Team Amaro and you represent our brand. Here's what's on brand. Here's what's off brand, and how you conduct yourself in and out of the office, and can you comport with our culture here and be on brand, and we check them out too. If we got somebody that's, popping bottles of, Cristal at the nightclubs, they're probably not somebody that's going to get hired by our law firm, if they got this party lifestyle outside of the firm. That's just not who we are and what we're about. We're got a pretty serious culture, I'd say, because we really truly believe in what we're doing, and that it actually provides value to society.
Well, this is a perfect segue to my next question, because you brought up social media. What role has digital marketing and social media played in your firm's overall marketing strategy?
Well, I would say digital marketing has just been critical to our success. And I was an early adopter because I had a background in digital marketing before I went to law school. I started a company that was basically Facebook meets Craigslist back in 1998 in Austin.
So Facebook Marketplace, basically.
Pretty much. That's what it was. But, this is 1998 technology. So it was like classifieds for students. Like, for those of your listeners that are old enough, you can remember the days of the student unions, and you had these posted cork boards where you posted ads for selling a guitar or futons, or you're looking for a roommate. Well, I took that and I stuck it on the internet. That's what I did. And next thing you know, we're having hundreds of ads a day being placed. I got radio advertisers that are swapping banner ads on our website in exchange for radio time for our commercials. We had radio commercials like in 3 months of launching this thing. So I had a lot of background, and I was always a little wheeler dealer too, especially in those days. I mean, you couldn't tell me no. You could not tell you could not tell me no when I was, 22, 23 years old. And so I had that background in digital marketing. I understood it. And so early on, I had a website built, phone was ringing off the hook, in 2008, 2010. And then I was an early adopter of Google reviews. And so we had over 1,000 reviews. We had more reviews than any other injury law firm in the country in 2015, 2016. And I was the first to have over 1,000 reviews nationwide, way, way first. Nobody else had even anything close. Now there's a lot of firms that have over 1,000 5-star reviews. So what happened in 2000, I'd say 14 to 16, is people started looking at reviews because Amazon blew up at this time, and people were reading Amazon reviews on products. What the consumers were doing was they would see TV, billboards, radio type of ads, and then they would go on Google to go, well, I don't want to hire those guys. I need to get a serious lawyer. And they would Google and they'd see us. And it was us, 1,000 5-star reviews, and then it was everybody else, 0, right? Or 50, something like that. Or they had, they weren't paying attention and they had like a 3.2 rating and, 1,000 reviews that were all negative, right? So it was that kind of situation, and we blew up as a result of that time. Like, we were just first to market. We were out in the, there's a blue ocean strategy book. Like, we were way out in the blue ocean. Like, it was going to take 2 years for anybody to catch up to us back then. And it did. And in the meantime, local service ads came out during COVID, and we weren't first to market. I was pretty upset actually that my marketing team didn't catch this and tell me about it until it was like 2 months already launched, and there were like these solo practitioners that were first to market, and they were putting LSA ads. I was like, why are we not on there? How did we miss this? Well, you didn't say we had any budget and blah, 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 blah. It's like, get that up right now. And so because we had multiple offices, and we had even at our other 5 offices, we had hundreds of reviews, and we were getting a lot of traffic from geo-targeting and geo searches in different markets. We were first to market in that strategy also, and opening different offices and getting our GMB in the 3-pack in different areas. So, I understood all that stuff and how it all works, and I still do. I still function as a CMO at my law firm. Like, I know this stuff inside and out. And so when local service ads launched, we were signing close to 100 cases a month, within 3 months. And we were just killing it. We were getting everything. And what also I know about digital technology is the algorithms have a learning curve. And so when LSAs launched, I was like, hey, back the trucks up. This ain't going to be this way forever. We got a short window before our competitors, jump in the market. They're going to get there. They're going to figure this out. Their marketing people are going to figure this out. So we got a window here before everybody catches up. And then 2, Google's going to change these algorithms. Like, they're not going to always be this way. And so what was happening in the very early, it was like, you go search for injury lawyer in Texas, it was Amaro, it would show up in the local service ads.
You got all three spots.
We had all three spots on the top. We had all three spots on the GMB locations. And so we were just crushing it back then. And then it changed. The algorithms picked up. They're like, hey, we can't have the same law firm, in all three spots. And they started filtering those out after a while. But, I knew it. I knew what was going to happen. And we just, took advantage of it during that window. So you got to pay attention to that stuff. Mm-hmm. And you got to know what's coming. And when you see, my dad always says, when the sun's out, make hay, like you gotta take that opportunity and take that shot. You don't know how long that sun's going to be out.
Right. The other thing too is like, you also don't want to be completely reliant on one tactic for all your marketing. Right. So if, 90% of your cases are coming from a single marketing source, that's a risky place to be in, because one thing changes, that, like you said, that algorithm changes, or new competitors enter in, or you start getting negative reviews or something like that. That your marketing engine could really start to sputter out quickly. So I love everything you said. You're preaching to the choir with the Google reviews. It's amazing that you guys were an early adopter of that. I want to go a little bit down a rabbit hole here. How have you been able to get client reviews consistently? Because a lot of the clients I speak with, a lot of the law firms I speak with, they always say, I can't get 20 reviews a month. I can't get 50 reviews a month. How have you been able to systematize that and be so consistent with it?
Well, it's a lot harder now. I could say that because people it's a review fatigue, I guess you could say. People are always asking you to leave reviews at every single business you go to. I got asked to give 2 reviews today. I got asked for the doctor I went to yesterday. They're asking for a review, and so consumers have review fatigue. And I think that over time, that we're firms, it's going to give you some credibility, and internet cred, right? When people have it, but I think it's going to fade out over the next few years. And people are just not, everybody's going to have 1,000 5-star reviews. Every single injury law firm, there's going to be 10 of them that have that. So what does it mean anymore? I think that's going to happen eventually. But, to answer your question, the strategies that I used early on just don't work anymore to get that many reviews. What we also learned early on was that, it didn't necessarily have to be a client that left you a review. And this isn't rocket science. It could be friends or family that, if I've ever been in a wreck or I've ever been injured, I met Mr. Amaro, at a barbecue, and the guy wouldn't shut up about his cases. That's all he does is talk about cases he's working on. Guy doesn't have a life. So if I was ever had an issue like that, I would call this guy. That'd be the first person, right? So we would get reviews like that. And I'd get reviews from Uber drivers, it was like a fun game I would play when I was traveling. I would talk to Uber drivers and I would check out, what they had. They had water and all these different China chargers and little signs and hand sanitizers, during COVID. And I'd be like, wow, look at this. This is fantastic. You got this thing set up. This is great customer service. I really appreciate this. And let me tell you why. And I would start launching into customer service because it's really important to me and really important to my firm and how we handle our cases. Customer service is so important to me. And so it's like a genuine conversation I would have because I could tell it was important to them in the Uber, right? The Uber driver. And then I would say, they were asking me for a review. And then at the end, I'd go, here's my card. Can you return the favor? And it would be like, am I going to get the review from the Uber driver? It's like a fun little game I would do, especially if I'm like with somebody and they know what I'm doing, that the whole Uber drive is about me getting a 5-star review out of the Uber driver. It's like a game we would play. I bet you Chick-fil-A, I'd get a 5-star review out of this Uber driver, So, those were like, I always gamify it, I guess you could say. So we have challenges in the firm, we had things where we give away a 55-inch TV to the most reviews and, maybe a $500 gift certificate to the second who could get the most reviews, but they had to be legitimate. No fake reviews are permitted because we know what the algorithms do with that. So they had to be legitimate, and we would set up the criteria of, what qualifies, and we'd have these challenges that would go. But you have to have consistent challenges. You can't just do a one and done. Like, you have to have it constantly going. And then we also have it as part of our KPIs, like as an ongoing thing. So our team members, we have it quantified, like, there's different ways. Some people are just not extroverted, so you have to be fair too. We have like 80 something people that work at the law firm now. So some people are extroverted, some aren't. And so it's not fair to say you're not going to get a bonus if you don't get any reviews. Some people are really good at getting reviews or getting in referrals into the law firm. And some people can go work in the basement all by themselves and never talk to anybody and do a great job. So we had to make it fair. So we have, KPI model, like, okay, well, other, we call them culture points. So you can bring in cases, get in reviews, or you can also go to community events. You could donate some of your time to a local charity. There's other things that you can do to get those points. So those are generally the ways we do it. I've never been a fan of using those. I don't want to name any, but the vendors that are out there that do the reviews like for you and do the work for you. My experience is if you want to get it done right, you got to do it yourself. Like, we would set up those same type of email sequences. Did you enjoy your experience? Yes or no? If yes, then it goes to the, a review funnel. If no, then how can we make it better? Get somebody on the phone and maybe we can convert it into a good review. So we would do that stuff internally. I wouldn't hire those companies that would do it for you, because I checked it out and it just never was something that resonated with me. Might be successful for other law firms, but not for us. And then we have like email sequences like internally that we built that go out and seek reviews. So we're always getting reviews. I don't know how long, this is gonna last, where that's the big game. But I will tell you where I do see the future in marketing is going to be audience. It's going to be a captive audience and remarketing and retargeting to a captive audience. That, with the privacy laws, and just look at the writing on the wall where everything is headed. We used to be able to do geo-targeting. I used to be able to, target a specific zip code, income, gender, occupation on social media. You can't do any of that stuff anymore. I used to be able to look at my Google Analytics reports, and I could tell you a lot about who is coming to my website. Now with GA4, I don't know. It's almost worthless information that we get from GA4 unless you really get into it and you're a data scientist. So, it's just looking at the writing on the wall. Is like the name of the game is to get your audience and remarket and retarget to your audience. And every firm is going to have their own audience of who they're remarketing, retargeting, like who is referring you business. It's going to be, ex-clients, vendors, people in your network, and having to get control of that. And, my warning to other law firm owners out there is to control your data and to get access to your data. Just like, back in the old days of starting a website, like, it'd start a website, it would be hosted somewhere else. And some of the guys or girls out there that are old as me or older, maybe you had your website held ransom by some bad vendor out there and said, well, if you want the files to your website, that'll be $10,000. Been there, done that. Same thing is going to happen with data for the audience that's coming to your website. That is the future, I think, of internet marketing or digital marketing. And like we have HubSpot for our email. Like, I didn't mess around with, been there, done that with MailChimp, been there, done that with Constant Contact and all these other things that are out there, ActiveCampaign. But, when you're dealing with something at this level with, client and email sequences and stuff, you got to really have the best of the best. And so we're actively working on HubSpot campaigns right now to have that built out for our firm. I've used Infusionsoft. I've done some really complicated email sequences, and I get my hands in it. I wireframe that stuff out myself and build it out, draw it out on dry erase boards, and then review the wireframes that the developers send over to me, especially back in the days when we were using Infusionsoft. I mean, that stuff was complicated and very hard to use. It's a lot more intuitive these days. HubSpot's very intuitive, and you have this whole university. It's very expensive though, but it's very good. Get what you pay for.
So much good knowledge and insight that just dropped in the last 5 minutes there. I didn't want to interject while you were talking, just to kind of recap some of the main points. Google reviews, I would say, and I think you'd agree, they're almost a prerequisite now if you're going to be serious with your digital marketing. It's no longer the blue ocean. To your point, there's tons of people out there that are prioritizing this. But if you want to have any staying power on the search engine result pages, you need to at least start getting reviews. And in your particular firm, you've embedded it into the culture, and it's something that you're regularly tracking. You're building incentives, and you're making it a game for the team, which I think is excellent. That's how you get everyone rowing in that direction. And then I love everything you just said about data. You're really preaching to the choir here, because that's something that we stress with our clients, that these systems, Google, Meta, all these platforms, they're essentially AI companies, right? And they're only going to perform as well as the data that you feed them. And if you don't have your data in order, those channels aren't going to take off the way that you expect them to. So if you want more from your marketing, you need to do a better job of collecting data on your prospective clients and your actual clients. And that's only going to make you more and more effective at finding the right fit clients. I know we're at time here, James. I really appreciate all the insight that you shared today. How can our listeners learn more about you and Amaro Law Firm?
Sure. I mean, I'm easy to find. Google me. James Amaro. I'm the only Amaro injury lawyer in the country, so I'm very easy to find. We handle cases, nationwide, catastrophic, and especially trucking cases. We do that everywhere. I geek out to this stuff, so if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, I read a lot of books. I read a lot of marketing and advertising books. Pretty much I've read everything out there. I listen to all the podcasts on marketing and so forth. Probably not as much as I used to, but I do. So easy to find. AmaroLawFirm.com on the net.
Great. James, thank you again. To our listeners, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Pareto Legal Podcast. We'll see you next time for another episode.